not all men are born equal. We are all created with a unique blend of strengths and weaknesses, gifts that shape our potential but do not define our destiny. What truly determines our outcome is how we choose to understand, refine, and apply these attributes. Yet beyond talent or advantage lies a deeper truth. Talent demands growth. The qualities that once carried us to success may not be the same ones that will sustain us there. To endure, we must continually adapt, shedding what no longer serves us and cultivating what the next stage of our journey requires. After years of development marked by both victories and hard lessons, Anthony Yarde has evolved from a power-dependent puncher into a more composed, tactically aware fighter. Since his loss against Artur Benavidez, Yarde is currently on a 4-fight win streak, having stopped 2 of his opponents. Now, as he eyes a clash with Benavidez, one of boxing's most ruthless and violent pressure fighters of today, Yarde stands at a pivotal moment of his career. The matchup is not just a collision of styles, but a test of maturity, endurance, and adaptability between 2 men who thrive on breaking opponents down in very different ways. Anthony Yarde is a dynamic counterpunching pressure fighter. He embodies a more athletic, explosive, and reactive approach. His style is rooted in timing and power, as reflected by his impressive 88% knockout ratio. He emphasizes sharp counters and explosive bursts of offense. Yarde's stance is compact and coiled, allowing him to spring forward with devastating power punches at close range. He relies on reflexes and head movement rather than a traditional high guard. While his output is more calculated, his efficiency is striking. Every shot is thrown with intent to damage or deter. Yarde's rhythm is rhythmic, yet deceptive, luring opponents into exchanges where his speed and strength can shift momentum in an instant. To analyze Yarde's current form, we will focus on his most recent bout against Artur. After all, in boxing, you're only as good as your last fight. Yarde's performance against Artur in the trilogy fight showcased a more matured, composed version of his aggressive style, one that blended his trademark explosiveness with improved discipline. Offensively, Yarde assumed the role of the aggressor throughout the fight, facing a taller, longer-reaching Artur. His primary challenge was finding an effective way to close the distance. Having moved away from his earlier pressure-heavy punching style, Yarde was forced to rely more on his jab to bridge the gap rather than cutting off the ring forcefully. Although he maintained an active jab, it proved largely ineffective as a genuine offensive threat, landing only 29 of 221 attempts. The core issue, Yarde rarely committed fully to the jab, instead using it primarily as a rangefinder rather than a shot intended to inflict damage. The lack of commitment diminished the jab's deterrent effect. When a jab fails to carry force or threat, it ceases to command respect from the opponent. As a result, Artur faced little danger from Yarde's lead hand and was able to anticipate and focus on the follow-up punches. Without the jab establishing a layer of offensive threat, Yarde's combination became easier to read from the outside, allowing Artur to focus his defense on more powerful shots that followed. When Yarde struggled to find Arthur's head, he shifted his focus to jabbing the body. The larger target gave him more confidence to commit fully to the punch, but the commitment often came at a cost. In reaching to the body, Yarde frequently overextended, compromising his balance and leaving himself out of position. These moments of overreaching created a brief defensive lapse, exposing him to counters during his recovery. What Yarde did particularly well was using his jab to provoke reactions from Artur. In those moments, he was able to draw Artur out of position and capitalize by pulling him into traps. Yarde possessed the sharp, reactive lead hook that allowed him to respond swiftly to openings. However, the punch was more of a fast, slapping hook designed for speed rather than power. He often paired this hook with his natural explosiveness to close distance and break patterns on openings. Despite these strengths, Yarde continued to struggle in finding consistent success in getting past Arthur's stern jab.
Lindenhoff again up quickly and ready for battle. Getting that jab nudged in front. Anthony Yarde again has been good at times, but the pressure.
Yarde's most effective moments came later in the fight, as Arthur's movement began to diminish. During these more stationary exchanges, Yarde went back to his old habits as he was able to close in, plant his feet and press his chest against Arthur to then unload his power on the inside. One of Yarde's greatest attributes is generating leverage on his punches at close range, where his power and athleticism are most effective. His conditioning also appeared solid throughout the second half of the fight, finishing strong, averaging 85 punches thrown in the final 3 rounds. However, one might question whether the endurance was partly a result of his lower output and measured pacing in the early rounds, stemming from his difficulty in finding Arthur.
Eye-catching shots, but the last few he's just up the tempo. Again, that's good one.
I tell you what, it's got better and better this. The last 3 or 4 rounds.
Yarde's defensive game remains a work in progress, marked by flashes and instinctive brilliance, but also recurring vulnerabilities. His preference for a low lead hand means his defense leans heavily on reflexes rather than a conventional high guard. While this can make him more unpredictable, it also leaves him exposed when his reaction lags or when opponents exploit the open lanes his stance creates. One of the most glaring issues is his susceptibility to the jab. Arthur's jab consistently pierced through Yarde's guard, particularly when Yarde lunged forward or neglected head movement on entry. Throughout much of the fight, Yarde struggled to find an effective solution for closing the distance without taking punishment. Only in the later rounds, when Arthur's mobility waned, that Yarde began to impose himself more effectively. Yet, as the old saying goes, old habits die hard. When his adjustments faltered, Yarde often reverted to the very tendencies that have long hindered his defensive growth. His offensive bursts, though powerful and spirited, frequently came at the cost of defensive discipline. It's a double-edged sword. His aggression can topple opponents, but against those who can match his pace, it becomes a liability that turns his own strengths against him.
The power, how would he take the big shots? Well, so far, so good.
This is good, though. Good shot there from Yarde.
In the matchup against David Benavidez, a fighter of Anthony Yarde's style appears almost tailor-made for Benavidez's strength as a pressure boxer. Despite his aggressive approach, Benavidez manages distance exceptionally well, using his reach and aggression to control exchanges. For Yarde, the first major challenge will be breaching that outer layer of range before he can close in enough to unload his power. If Benavidez succeeds in establishing his preferred distance, Yarde would be forced onto his back foot, an uncomfortable position for a fighter who thrives on forward momentum and would have to somehow match Benavidez's unyielding output punch for punch. Defensively, Yarde's reactive style poses a significant liability in this kind of fight. His reflex-based defense is almost effective in slower, more measured bouts where he can anticipate and counter. Against Benavidez, whose offense is built on sustained combinations and volume, Yarde would need to block proactively and maintain constant awareness just to stay competitive. The pacing of pressure Benavidez applies often breaks down fighters who rely too heavily on reaction rather than structure. Benavidez's ability to fight effectively at all ranges, whether at distance, mid-range, or inside, combined with his durability and conditioning, allows him to maintain a punishing tempo from start to finish. While boxing always leaves room for the unexpected, as there's always a puncher's chance, the stylistic matchup heavily favors Benavidez. In all likelihood, unless Yarde lands something decisively early, the fight tilts toward the Mexican monster, imposing his will and finally getting his first stoppage at light heavyweight.